Ba 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 da ba da ba 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 da da ba 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 da ba ba boo da ba da ba doo da doo da biddly beep bop 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 ba ba da ba 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 da da ba ba da ba ba da ba 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 da 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 ba beep bop biddly bop bop biddly bop biddly bop beep ba da bop biddly bop. I'm warming up for you. Well, hello there. Why, hello. Hello, everybody. It's August. It's August. Woo, we made it to another month. We made it. Here we are. Another month in the books. This also means we're one day closer to Halloween. Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing today? Still feeling a little tired, if I'm being honest. I went to the gym, but I was only there for about half an hour. Just been feeling a little lethargic. I've just been wanting to sit on my couch and play video games, if I'm being honest. Is that on the wheel somewhere? Where's that feeling at? Where is the feeling of wanting to just sit on your couch and play video games? Huh. Hmm. We've got a question in the box that talks about attachment styles, so we're going to start off today. We're going to talk about attachment styles for a little bit. This is something some of you might be familiar with, something you may have heard. Attachment styles is kind of one of those things that has kind of entered the... What's a good way to describe it? The public vocabulary. Every once in a while you'll see like psychological or therapeutic terms become more commonly used. Like gaslighting, like projection, just to name a few. But first, let me give you a ramen noodle review. I saw these, I don't know how new they are, but they were new to me, so these ramen bowls. And I got two of them. I got one that was spicy miso flavored, and that one was really good. This one was the hot and spicy shrimp, and it was okay. It was... miso one was better. Yeah, I just needed a little bit of a snack. A growing boy, what can I say? So let me slurp these up before we really get into it. You come for the ramen noodles ASMR, but you stay for the therapy. Hey man, howdy partner. Yeah, this ramen bowl left me feeling a little underwhelmed. I would get the miso one again, though. The miso one was pretty good. Anyway, you know the drill. We'll be doing some questions today. We'll see where the day takes us. What brand? That one was Maru-chan. I didn't stop to read the live notification. Did it say tell me what you like about yourself? I think so. Also, I think that you're the first person to actually engage with that go live notification. I was trying to prompt people. So I've got two questions in the box. One of them was about attachment styles, and I want to get into that one, but I'm going to spend more time on that one. So I might actually go to the next question first, because I feel like I want to this one I can answer more quickly. Not the wheel. Get that out of here. I did that yesterday too. Keep accidentally rolling the wheel out. Must you become a left-winger in order for therapy to be successful? Can you be right-wing and receive therapy? All therapy seems to be based on very left-leaning thinkers and ideologies. Therapy is for everyone. The thing about therapy is you get out of it whatever you're willing to put into it. And so if you want to get more out of therapy, you're going to need to assume a certain level of accountability. You're going to need to explore things such as empathy. You're going to need to start challenging your existing belief systems. And that can be difficult for anybody, left or right wing. I'm curious to hear more about what it is about therapy that you consider to be very left-leaning. I feel like empathy is for everybody. I feel like self-exploration is for everybody. I don't want to make generalizations and I don't want to stereotype, but I think that's a little bit unavoidable right now, so bear with me. In my experience, People who tend to be more right wing tend to be less interested in the importance of emotion. And when I say that, I mean it's more so in the right-wing circles that emotions are something that are just to not be discussed or talked about. They're not taken seriously and they're not really taken into consideration. Just deal with it. Just don't talk about it. Just try to forget it. Now, I could be generalizing here, but this is just me speaking from what I've seen. But no, okay. Also, I just want to say something. That I feel like most people are actually more left-leaning than they actually realize. Because a lot of left-leaning ideas they just make sense. You know, they're maybe I'm biased. It was a good question, though. But no, I don't think that you have to become like. I don't think that you have to change your political ideology in order to get benefit out of therapy. I feel like you can make a distinction between the two. And I don't think that empathy is unique to one side of the political spectrum. I feel like empathy is for everybody. I feel like self-exploration and self-understanding is for everybody. I feel like being able to become a force of positive change in your life, in your relationships, in your ability to regulate your emotions, I feel like that is for everybody. In my experience with more like, because there are therapists out there who are more right wing, and those types of therapists do tend to incorporate more of a religious component to it. There are a lot of counselors out there who will incorporate, you know, like prayer or like, now, have you asked God about this? Have you talked to God about this? Like, have you prayed on this? Which, I mean, if you really think about it, it's the same thing as asking somebody, it's like, well, have you really sat down and thought about this? Is this something that you've really taken the time to consider? Because I feel like it's just a different way of approaching the same thing. It's just a different flavor of approach. I feel like they can both work. But ultimately, if therapy will work for you, it'll take this. You, first off, you need to understand, or you need to be willing to learn and develop your understanding on what is it that I'm looking for in therapy. What is it that I'm trying to get out of it? And also, you have to be willing to do the work to make that happen. And I'm not going to sit here and say that anybody is more or less capable of doing that based on their political orientation. But I will say that, you know, there's nothing wrong with having validity in how you feel. I feel like when we don't attribute validity to how we feel and we, try to brush past the traumas that we've endured and, we just enable these generational traumas to persist, I feel like that is doing us harm. And I feel like that's for everybody to work on, regardless of your political orientation. Now, if that's a left-leaning idea, wanting people to have better communication, wanting people to have better relationships, wanting people to have better emotional regulation, if that makes it leftist, I don't know. Most therapists try to be apolitical. In my experience, most therapists make an effort to avoid discussing politics at all. But I've done therapy with people who were conservative. I've done therapy with people who were like fundamentally religious. I've done therapy with people who were more leftist. And I feel like they were all able to get something out of it. So there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Asking for help is a strength, and I feel like maybe in some conservative circles, asking for help might be perceived as a weakness. Because in those types of circles, we really do revere the importance of individual exceptionalism. But in reality, we would not have gotten as far as we have as a species if we didn't have one another to rely on. And so it's not a weakness to ask for help. It is actually a strength because it is essential. So I would just say, don't shut yourself off from what therapy could offer you just because you assume that these ideas must be, namby-pamby, left-leaning, hippy-dippy, you must be soft, you must be squishy, it's like, no. I actually would say it takes more strength to be kind than it does to be cruel. Now, I'm not saying, but kindness is often misinterpreted or misunderstood as weakness. But anyway, everybody's welcome here. Regardless of your political affiliation. Alright, let's talk for a little bit about attachment styles. This question popped up and it's about attachment styles, and so I'm going to go through this question and then we're going to talk more about attachment styles for a few minutes. So let's get into that. Do I have a presentation on attachment styles? I have so many presentations now I forget which ones I've done and which ones I haven't done. I don't know if I do. It's not really one I need one on though, if I'm being honest. Again, I might. I don't know if I do. Anyway, I don't need one. There are, I'm going to pull up an article. We'll go through an article on it. Alright, who here has heard of attachment styles before? Is this new to anyone? I just want to know if it is, because if it is, I want to approach it from that way so that we can all be on the same wavelength. So is this new to anybody? Some of you have probably heard of it before. Some of you might be somewhat familiar with it. Some of you might be quite familiar with it. but I'm just going to assume that some of you have never heard of this before in your life, and so we're going to approach it from that perspective. So I think before I even get into the question, I want to just pull this up. I love how every website asks you for cookies. There are 4 main different types of attachment styles, and when we say attachment styles, what are attachment styles? Attachment styles are the way that we create bonds and the way that we build and interpret relationships. And a lot of time, this is formed very early on in life. It's how you interact with your parents, your teachers, your siblings, your classmates, the people that you form relationships at the beginning of your life. It sets the tempo for how you form and maintain relationships as an adult. It's pretty easy to understand. It's not anything that's too out there. So as far as psychological concepts go, I would say attachment styles are pretty easy to understand. But they are divided into 4 main types. The first one would be secure, which is what you would want to see in an attachment style. But then there are also anxious, avoidant, and disorganized, which we're going to get into. We're going to talk more about them. But for now, I just want you to recognize that there are 4. All right? You can also take a quiz online. You can also take a quiz online to find out what type of attachment style you might have, if you're curious. Hello there, the question of the day. In your opinion, how close or far are we to creating superluminal or space-folding engines for traveling to other galaxies? I feel like we're a few hundred years off at least. I think we're not even going to worry about going to another galaxy until we thoroughly explore our galaxy. And we've got a lot of galaxy to explore first. In order to fold space, we're going to have to find the spice first. We're going to have to found the Spacing Guild. Alright, so our questioner says, they found out that they have a disorganized attachment style. And we'll talk about that more here in a little bit, and we'll get more into depth into what that means. I know even if I read every psychological book out there, it won't change my style unless I'm actually in the moment where my style activates, and then only then can I try my best to respond differently so I can slowly grow out of it. You are half right. Let me elaborate. Let me explain. It is true that whenever your style activates, that it is an opportunity for you to work on it, but that is not the only time that you can work on it. You can also use visualization, you can also rehearse it mentally, you can envision a situation or a circumstance, and then you can mentally prepare. How would I want to respond instead? How would I normally respond? What is my typical way of responding? And how would I like to respond instead? You can rehearse. And that's totally okay to do. In fact, I would actually recommend doing it. In the same way that people with like social anxiety, I would recommend, rehearsing beforehand. If you're, worried about what you're going to say or how you're going to say it, practicing ahead of time is totally valid. I would say it's actually really important. That way you're not just doing it live. But doing it live is also really important. Those are those moments where it's like, all right, now is the time. I'm going to put my skills to the test. But then again, it even goes beyond those two things. Practicing ahead of time and doing it in the moment. There are also those moments afterwards where we get to look back and say, okay, what did I do right? What do I want to change for next time? What did I do well? So we can acknowledge our progress, we can acknowledge our accomplishments, and we can recognize our room for growth. So the real work can be done before, during, and after. I'm stuck in limbo, gathering all this knowledge, but feel useless because it's like I'm studying for a test that isn't real. Oh no. The test is real. And it's going on right now, actually. Believe it or not, you're actually in the middle of it. This right here, the journey is the destination. Every moment has opportunity. It's like I'm studying for a test that isn't real, or I won't know when I'll get the test. Now, I think that if you were to sit down and think about it, at what points would I feel my attachment style being the most prevalent? Like, when would I really feel those struggles that I'm facing? We can learn when those will happen by looking at when they have happened to us before. And so, in some way, now we won't be able to guarantee with 100% accuracy, but we can look back and say, okay, it's normally in this type of situation, or with this person, or with, when I'm doing this type of thing. So you can get a pretty good idea of when those moments are going to be. You just got to look back through your experiences and identify those moments when you really did feel that disorganized attachment style coming into play. Right now I feel so lonely, and it's my fault since I've messed up relationships and friendships. Here's the thing. These things can be mended. Maybe not all relationships and friendships can be mended, but I feel like it's still important to try if you feel like that is an option. Just being genuine, just apologizing for any wrongdoing. It's worth a try. Sometimes we burn bridges, but bridges can be rebuilt. I'm in therapy and trying to get counseling in college since it's free. Hey, good for you. That's good. That's a great opportunity, so I would say go for it. I also feel undeserving of change since I've been the sole problem of these relationships. Now that is probably false. The only situations that I can think of where a person would be the sole problem of a relationship is when you are dealing with like a abusive parent and a child. In those situations, the responsibility is solely on the adult because they are the one that is grown and they are the one who is choosing and engaging in those abusive behaviors. And the child has no responsibility in those things. It's not the child's fault. It is never a child's fault when they are abused. But when we have relationships as teenagers, as adults, neither side bears the entirety of the responsibility. In fact, it's a two-player game. It's actually a co-op affair. It takes two to tango, as they say. Everybody's got stuff that they're dealing with, and it bleeds out into our relationships. This is a thought that I would really like to see you challenging and pushing back against, because I feel like this is a belief that doesn't serve you, and it's one that you would be better served to let go of, because this is a belief that is going to hold you back if you choose to hang on to it. You are deserving of change. Why would you not be? Aren't you deserving of healthy relationships? Isn't everyone deserving of healthy relationships? This is what I will normally do with when I'm talking to somebody and they feel like they are undeserving of these things. And I would say, well, isn't everybody deserving of those things? And they say, well, yes. Then why are you exempt? Why are you excluded from that? It's like, how does that make sense? How is that fair? You are in the process of becoming who it is that you are meant to be. And you yourself are as deserving of your own love and affection as anybody else in the universe. I feel like everybody deserves the opportunity to change. And I feel like everyone does have the opportunity to change, but it's about being brave enough to take that opportunity. And I think you do have what it takes. You've already sought out therapy and you're looking into getting into some more counseling, and that is a strength. Let's recognize that. So Lord Sauron it is. Alright, I feel like everybody has a road to redemption. Some people just have a much longer road than others. Is there anybody out there who's truly beyond redemption? Who am I to be the judge? I'm not God. Oh, I'm not the creator. I'm just a dude. I guess the question would be, can good and bad deeds outweigh one another? Like, how many good deeds does it take to outweigh a bad deed? I'm not really the one to say. I'm not really the one to make that call. And we've all got our own opinion on it. Is the anxiety freeze response different from prevention? Yep. Or different from depression? Yes. The freeze response is one of the anxiety responses. The other ones would be fight or flight. There's also another one that's fawn, because apparently, when psychologists come up with these, they like to have a theme, and so they're like, let's make them all start with F. The reason why we freeze in those moments of anxiety is literally, it's like our brain is short-circuiting. We just get stuck in it. That's a new one to me. Fawn. Yeah, that would be whenever you try to appeal to a source of danger in a way that will try to, like, make them happy. So it would kind of tie into, like, people-pleasing behavior. But how can I tell if I'm bipolar? That's not up for you to tell, believe it or not. That would best be done by a specialist, somebody who specializes in diagnosing those types of things. What we really don't want to diagnose ourselves. It's really important to remember that not even doctors diagnose themselves. Even a doctor would go and see another doctor if they need a diagnosis. Because we are biased when it comes to ourselves. We tend to be either too tough on ourselves or too lenient on ourselves, and we need somebody who can be non-biased and objective. But anyway, if you are interested in learning more, when we think of bipolar, we think of alternating periods of time where you will fluctuate between a depressed mood and an elevated mood, otherwise known as a manic mood. What kind of doctor should I talk to? I have access to the VA. I would recommend asking to talk to somebody in, maybe they would refer to it as behavioral health. Here, let me look it up. I'm assuming you're the VA in America. They have a number. Yeah, it's just the VA Mental Health Services. You can ask, if you have a primary doctor, you can ask them to make an appointment with the VA mental health provider. And I would just say, I've been looking to talk to somebody more about how I've been feeling. Alright, before I move on to the next question, I just want to remind you, questioner, that you are deserving of change. Everybody's deserving of change. And you're not excluded from that. You just as much as anybody else. I'll ask that. Oh, sure. Awesome. Yeah, let me know how it goes. I'm sure they'll be able to get you pointed in the right direction. I've worked with people before who got mental health through the VA, and they had good things to say. I want to talk more a little bit about the attachment styles before I get back to the questions. So there are 4 different types. First one is anxious, otherwise known as preoccupied. Adults with an anxious attachment style tend to have a negative self-view, but a positive view of others. This means that they may view their partner as their literal better half, because someone with this attachment style deems themselves to be less worthy of love in comparison to other people. The thought of living without their partner or being alone in general causes high levels of anxiety. In other words, they deeply fear abandonment. To ease this fear of abandonment, people with an anxious attachment style strongly desire security within their relationships. And attention, care, and responsiveness from a partner tends to be the remedy for their feelings of anxiety. So you could see a lot of people who have this style of attachment falling into codependent relationships, where they are with somebody who they rely on for their emotional support. On the other hand, the perceived absence of support and intimacy can lead someone with the anxious attachment style to become more clinging and demanding, and preoccupied with the relationship, and desperate for reassurance that they are loved. In a nutshell, people with this attachment style value their relationships highly, but are often hyper-vigilant towards threats to their security, as well as anxious and worried that their loved one is not as invested in the relationship as they are. Number 2 would be avoidant or dismissive. People with this attachment style tend to have a positive self-view and a negative one of others. Isn't relying on your partner for emotional support a part of the deal? Yes. You do want to be dependent on one another. That is okay. But we only look at... I'm talking about it in more of like a extreme way. Like, oh, you're going to the store? I need to go with you. I can't be without you for... Like, we have to do everything together. I'm just overwhelmed by anxiety. Like, something's going to happen to you. Let me look through your phone. Who are you talking to? You know, that kind of stuff. But no, there's no problem with relying on your partner for emotional support. That's definitely a part of the deal. But you don't necessarily want them to be your only support, and you don't want to become overly reliant. Like, you're unable to regulate your own emotions, and so you rely on them to help you regulate your emotions, if that makes sense. See, dem trolls get it. They just said what I said. They get it. It's like, in a codependent relationship, the person that you're with is basically your emotional support human. People with the avoidant or dismissive attachment style tend to have a positive self-view and a negative one of others. Consequently, they prefer to foster a high sense of independence and self-sufficiency, especially on an emotional level. Does this remind you of anyone you know? Someone with the avoidant attachment style tends to believe that they don't have to be in a relationship to feel complete. They do not want to depend on others. They have others depend on them, or they don't want others to depend on them, or they don't want to seek support and approval in social bonds. Adults with this attachment style generally avoid intimacy or emotional closeness, so they may withdraw from a relationship if they feel like the other person is becoming reliant on them in this manner. They also tend to hide or suppress their feelings when faced with a potentially emotion-dense situation, such as conflict. I would say that of all of the attachment styles, this is probably one of the ones that might be the trickiest to do something about. Because it's gonna involve like a certain amount of like ego check. Because a lot of what goes into this is a lot of ego. Like, I am just so great. I don't need anyone else. I don't want to depend on people. I don't want people depending on me. I can make it on my own. I don't need anybody. And you could imagine how it would be difficult to help somebody through that. You'd have to do a lot of, challenging of those beliefs that they have. Alright, number 3 is disorganized or fearful avoidant, and this is the one that the questioner described themselves as having. People with a disorganized attachment style tend to vacillate between the traits of both anxious and avoidant attachment depending on their mood and circumstances. Vacillate is just a fancy word for alternate between the two. It just depends on the circumstance. So of the two we just talked about, a little bit of both. For this reason, someone with this attachment style tends to show confusing and ambiguous behaviors in their social bonds. I hate you, don't leave me. I get how the attachment styles apply to romantic relationships. Does someone with one of these, say an avoidant attachment, think that that was the appropriate way for most people to be?
I would agree with you there, Pork Tree. I would also say, I would take that a step further and say that most people operate under the assumption that other people's brains work in a similar way as their brain. That most people think like I think. That I'm doing things the right way. I'm the one who's got it figured out. For adults with disorganized attachment, the partner and the relationship themselves are often the source of both desire and fear. The reason why someone would develop this style of attachment, because you might be asking, like, why does it alternate? Why does it fluctuate? Why is it situational? It has to do with the volatility and the inconsistency of your relationships early on in your life. Maybe love felt conditional. Maybe you had to deal with parents or caregivers or whoever it was early on in life, and they were inconsistent in how they treated you. There were times where they might love bomb you, and there were times where they might just neglect you. And there wasn't really any rhyme or reason to when or why they did what they did. And that confusion and that inconsistency is what leads you to be so disorganized in your attachment, because you're not sure what people are trying to do, because you feel like you can't predict them because things have been so unpredictable for you. That explains a lot. Well, understanding is an essential part in overcoming, so I would say a lot of what will go into this, a lot of what will need to happen in order to heal from a disorganized attachment style is just learning to say, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to emotionally invest in this person, even if it hurts. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to be brave. Because even though it might hurt, it's not going to kill me. People with this attachment style often struggle with identifying and regulating their emotions and tend to avoid strong emotional attachment due to their intense fear of getting hurt. I would say that the disorganized attachment style goes hand in hand with something like BPD. And I'm not trying to say that the questioner has BPD. I'm not here to like diagnose anybody, but I would say that this is the attachment style that you would see in BPD. It's that I hate you, don't leave me. I don't think that anyone is 100% healthy attached. Oh yeah, not at all. Because we're all human, and we all do the things that humans do. I don't want to be rude, especially for chatters who relate to the disorganized, but can you tell me more about how someone would cope with that in a relationship? I dated someone like this who did have BPD, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't balance what felt like, and sometimes was obviously abuse. That's a good question, Pork Tree. Also, as someone who's been in similar circumstances in my life, let me tell you that it is very confusing. One of the things that will sometimes happen in a relationship with someone who has BPD is they will say things to you that they know will hurt you, that they know will drive you away, and they do this as a means of just seeing whether or not you are going to leave them. They have this intense fear of abandonment, but then when they feel agitated or they feel stressed, they will do things that actually contribute to the likelihood that you will leave them. Up to and including abuse. But the thing that really matters is it's just like what Sherry Noble said. It is up to the person who has that condition to work on it. It's no one else's job to fix that. And all you can do is just try your best to be supportive. And if you can recognize as like, okay, they're just saying this because they're trying to hurt me. I don't need to let it hurt me. I recognize that they are trying to hurt me as a way of trying to hurt themselves. Sometimes people with BPD will hurt their relationships as a form of self-harm. Does that make sense? It's like they will sabotage their relationships. They will say like awful things to the people that they care about most as a way of harming themselves. Because they feel like, I don't deserve to have this relationship. They're just going to leave me one day. They're not going to be able to handle me. I have to show them the absolute worst of myself. And it can be very stressful, very challenging. I didn't have the capacity as an early 20-year-old. Oh yeah, absolutely. BPD is one of those things that people do get better with as they get older. That is one of the things that is often overlooked when we think about BPD. But it is one of the things that people do learn how to live with, and they do learn how to regulate their emotions better, and they do learn how to identify and curb their sabotage behaviors. I used to be this way, but I'm no longer like that. Well, give yourself a pat on the back. I feel like we all need to give ourselves some more credit for how hard we work. The things that you'll want to practice if you do find yourself dealing with disorganized attachment is you need to practice emotional regulation, you need to practice mindfulness, and you need to practice distress tolerance. Well, that's a topic for another day. That's a topic for another day. Maybe we'll go through the BPD slideshow again sometime soon. How do you practice emotional regulation? What emotion are you trying to regulate? My answer to that is, it depends. What is the emotion that you are trying to regulate? Because it depends. Different forms of regulation for different types of emotions. You regulate rage in a different way than you regulate sadness. Mostly anger. The next time you feel your anger start to bubble up, I want you to sing. I also find that turning anger into laughter is a helpful way of regulating it. Like taking a step back from yourself and getting a laugh at how angry you are. Like, wow, I'm so angry right now. That's actually kind of funny. I feel like a big part of learning how to emotionally regulate is to learn how to not take yourself so seriously. Like whenever we're feeling a really powerful emotion, while the anti-anger isn't a normal feeling, Actually, anger is a secondary feeling. It stems from something else. Anger doesn't really pop into existence on its own. It normally stems from fear. It's normally a fear-driven emotion. And a lot of people will engage in anger as a way of trying to control that fear. This could be fear of getting hurt, fear of loss, fear of, being mistreated. No, anger is a secondary emotion. The other day, the bus driver intentionally did not let me in and drove away. I got mega pissed, and later I was ashamed by how angry I got. I feel like some of that shame belongs to the bus driver, too. I feel like that shame is not for you alone. So, what we all want to work towards is developing a more secure attachment style, and this is something that everybody could work on because no one has a perfectly secure attachment style. It's just about being more secure. And so an attachment style that is secure involves feeling comfortable expressing your emotions openly. You can depend on your partners and in turn let them depend on you. Secure attachment styles are based on honesty, tolerance, and emotional closeness. And although someone with this attachment style often thrives in their relationships, they also don't fear being on their own. Secure attachers tend to have a positive view of themselves and others, so they do not overly seek external approval or validation. They can successfully identify and regulate their emotions, and even help a partner do so with theirs. Let me pull up the wheel real quick. I want you to look at the anger section of the wheel. Maybe I should make it bigger. Emotional closeness sounds scary. It's not gonna bite you. It's not gonna bite you. Just because a dog bit you once, or maybe a dog bit you a couple times when you were young, doesn't mean every dog you meet is gonna bite you, and doesn't mean you can't pet a cute puppy. Take a look at the anger wedge. Look at all of the feelings that are tied into anger. Anger isn't really so much a feeling on its own. It's either driven by hate, hostility, agitation, frustration, annoyance, aggravation, resentment, envy, contempt. Oh yeah, anger is not really one of those emotions that will just pop up on its own. It needs something to get you there. Also, try to look at anger as your mind attempting to use it as a tool, because for many people, anger is a tool. Anger can give you the motivation that you need to navigate through a stressful situation. But it's not the only tool that you need in your emotional toolbox. Otherwise, you're just going to knock holes in stuff, trying to fix everything with a hammer. Sometimes you need a screwdriver. Okay, I'll try. You know, or you could go sign up for kickboxing or a martial art or something. You know, channel that emotion into something else. Like me, I got a heavy bag, I got a speed bag, I got some boxing gloves. It teaches you the discipline that you need to regulate and control that emotion. Also, just look back at your life. Look back at all the times where you did stuff, but you did it while you were angry. And just think about how the anger, more often than not, just made things worse. You ended up knocking something over or breaking something because you were just acting too quickly, too forcefully, because you were just blinded by the anger. I think the reason why people struggle so much with regulating and controlling their anger is because anger is one of those feelings that is self-perpetuating. Like, you get angry, but then you also provide yourself with the justification that you need to feel the way that you do. Like, think about other emotions. Like, maybe when you feel sad, you're like, why must I feel this way? So whenever you're feeling sad and you're like, warum muss ich so fühlen, you can be like, well, I don't know, I don't have a reason for it. But whenever you're angry, you're like, ooh, I'm angry and I know exactly why I need to be angry. Anger likes to keep itself going. The other day, I had a strange experience in my therapy session. This was really helpful, thanks. Hey, give yourself some credit too, because knowing who to ask for help and guidance is a strength. So it's not just me, it's also you. You're the one doing all the hard work. I'm just up here saying stuff. I'm just up here like, but you're the one who's actually changing your brain. That's all you. So give yourself a round of applause. I feel extra snatched today. Is that a valid emotion? Slay. I need to add slay to the wheel. I need to add gagged. I need to update this wheel. The other day, I had a strange experience in my therapy session. Since forever, I had an immense problem to establish a loving, intimate relationship. On this occasion, my therapist asked me, "What is my fantasy girl like?" And I described her as skinny, cute, loving, interesting. After a while, he said, okay, tell me, how does she see you?" And this change of perspective really sort of crushed me. I saw a completely irresponsible man. Someone there is zero chance he will be there for his girl. Will be completely unreliable. I literally imagined having her in my car while I have a flat tire. I'm at that point immensely under stress. I want her to solve the problem. Shifting responsibility. I'm sure I won't be able to change the tire. I'll just be a burden to her. Through her eyes, I am a burden. Something to look at with disgust and disdain. Now, in real life, I am a good crisis solver. My father was not, being an angry alcoholic. But there are other unreliabilities. Soon in a relationship, I get cold, I deep down get afraid of closeness, and I don't know. I just disappear emotionally in a relationship. I don't know what's a defense mechanism and what is my actual misshapen self. I just know that change of perspective showed me a man no sane girl would ever want. Any reflection is welcome, and thank you for your streams and insights. Alright. First off, you're welcome. You thanked me, I will say you're welcome. I think this is a really important exercise that you did, because it showed you all of your vulnerabilities, all of the things that you were fearful of. You had an opportunity to look at yourself as if you were someone else. Now, was this an accurate representation? Probably not. One of the things that happens when we look at ourselves from someone else's perspective is we will see a lot of our insecurities. Because this is something that we all do. We project our insecurities onto someone else. Because we have a hard time believing these negative things about ourselves, we assume that other people must believe these things about us. We find an outlet for our fear. Now, I'm sure that you've probably had an opportunity to talk to your therapist about this, but I'm sure that you are aware that a lot of this conflict that you're dealing with would probably be related to your relationship that you had with your dad. Think about it for a minute. What does a boy learn from his dad? When you're a young boy, you learn from your dad what a man is supposed to be like. And so, in some ways, you might be viewing yourself in the same way that you viewed your dad. You know, you might have those fears and worries. You feel like, well, what if I'm going to end up like him? Or what if I am like him? What if it somehow snuck through in my DNA? Since you've practiced this in looking at yourself from the perspective of someone that you were in a relationship with, I want you to try this again, but I want you to do it a little differently. I feel like what might be helpful, or to give you a slightly different perspective, is to try looking at yourself as if you were your best friend. What would your best friend think about all of these feelings that you have? How would they want you to respond? What sort of things would your best friend want you to let go of? What sort of insecurities? What sort of internal conflicts? I feel like being able to step outside yourself and look at yourself from a different perspective is essential in your healing. And I feel like to continue to do that will help you get to where you're trying to go. So, in your real life, you're a good crisis solver. You're good at solving problems. This is just another problem for you to figure out. So view your problems as if they are your best friend's problems. What would you want your best friend to do about these things? About these insecurities, about these worries? You've got a good prognosis. You've got a good prognosis, and you're doing what you need to do. So just keep asking yourself those hard questions. Figure out who it is that you really are. And figure out who it is that you're working on becoming. Don't blame yourself for not being perfect yet. Perfection doesn't exist. The good thing is that all of these things about you that you are uncomfortable with are things that you can change. They are things that you can work on. And you're doing the work already. You just got to keep doing what you're doing. Hello there. Can OCD convince me that my girlfriend isn't pretty? I'm going insane right now. I've been having suicidal thoughts and all I feel is absolutely horrible. I find her beautiful, but I doubt it too. I never know about anything. One of the things that obsessive thoughts do, we also can label these thoughts as intrusive thoughts. Let's try to change how we view them. Just because we think a thing does not mean that we believe that thing. Okay? Sometimes you will think things that aren't in line with your beliefs, and they will make you feel stressed. And so this is actually a good thing. You have this thought, and you're like, ugh, where did that thought come from? That was so mean, that was so hateful, that was destructive or violent or cruel or whatever it may have been. And you might feel a sense of shame, like, why did I think that? All that is your brain testing you. It's your brain trying to figure out, do I believe this? The only way that your brain can figure out whether or not you believe a thing is by testing it out and thinking it. Do I like this thought? Or do I not like this thought? And sometimes your brain will present you with thoughts that you absolutely do not like. And so we label these thoughts as intrusive thoughts. And we say, okay, this goes against what I believe. I don't need to think this. I can let this thought go. But that could be a challenge sometimes because we find them to be so disruptive, so jarring. Like, why would I think that? Why would I think that? If I thought it, it must mean that I somehow deep down believe it. No. No, not at all. Your brain will sometimes think a thing just as an opportunity to determine whether or not it is something that you believe. A belief is just a thought that you choose to keep thinking. And so if you have a thought that comes up that goes against what you actually believe, this thought makes you feel shameful, it makes you feel frustrated, makes you feel confused or anxious or sad, whatever it makes you feel. Just recognize that it's just your brain trying to figure out, what do I actually believe? And the only way that your brain can figure out what it really believes is by also figuring out what it doesn't believe. So just because you have a thought doesn't mean that it needs to have any value. You have 50,000 thoughts a day on average. The average person has 50,000 thoughts a day. How many of those are just gonna suck ass? At least a few, right? They can't all be winners. It's the same kind of thing as whenever maybe you're driving or you're standing on a high edge or something, and there's a part of you that's like, wow, if I jumped off of this cliff, that I would die. And then you're like, what the fuck? Why was I thinking about jumping off the cliff? I don't want to jump off the cliff. That's a perfect example of how your brain tests reality. It asks you the question, do I want to do this? Or do I think this? Do I believe this? And then you say, no, well, of course not. It's like, oh, okay, I was just checking. Literally, that is what your brain does. That is how it figures out what is real to you, is by checking in with you thousands of times a day. Do I believe this? Do I believe this? What about this? Do I think this? Do I think that? That is how your brain works. So next time you find yourself facing one of these thoughts, just take a pause. Just pause yourself and say, okay, do I want to keep this one or do I want to let it go? And if you want to let it go, then what I like to imagine is whenever I'm letting go of a thought like that, I imagine it flying into the sun and just being burnt away into nothing. It is gone forever. There's no way that it's going to come back. But yeah, you can change this. This isn't something that you're going to be stuck doing forever. You can actually take a proactive stance and work on changing the way that you respond to these types of thoughts. And it does work. So what will be helpful is just being more mindful of when these types of thoughts come up and labeling them accordingly. Like, oh, that's what that dude was talking about. He was talking about intrusive thoughts. This is an intrusive thought. I can let this one go. I don't need this one. And it's really important to do that. Because if you try to force yourself to not think it, if you say, why did I think that? I don't think that. Do I think that? And it just it'll just start to snowball. You can't make yourself not think a thing, but you can allow yourself to forget a thing. And it's different. So if I were to say to you, hey, don't think about the sun. Don't think about the sun. You know, the big glowing ball of plasma. The one that allows our planet to have life. Don't think about it. Don't think about how big it is. Don't think about how hot it is. Don't think about how far away it is. Don't think of any of those things. Don't think about the sun. If I tell you don't think about the sun, what do you think about? You're gonna think about the fucking sun. So you can't tell yourself to not think a thing, and that's what people normally get caught into whenever they have intrusive thoughts, is they're like, I can't think. Like, why am I thinking that? I need to, like, what? It's like, no, just acknowledge that this is just an intrusive thought. This is my brain trying to figure out what is real to me. And it's just testing me. It's just offering a suggestion. I don't need to take that suggestion as fact. Not every thought you have will be fact. All right? Power is yours. You can't control what it is that you think, but you do have some say in where those thoughts flow. Your thoughts are like a river. You can't stop the river. You can't stop the water from coming, but you can splash around in it. You can direct the current a bit. How do you find happiness when the place and community you live in does not allow it due to religion and tradition? I know I can never get out because I tried. Have you tried again? Have you tried again? How about a third time? I'm going to tell you a story about elephants. I'm going to tell you about a story about elephants, but I'm going to wait until after I read this question first. I know I can never get out because I tried. So I have to accept this life and be happy, but how? I don't think... having to accept it and be happy, it would just be coping. But no one is saying that you have to accept it. It isn't written yet. Ever since I stopped believing in religions and in heaven, I just couldn't accept that this life that we all... Couldn't accept that this life that we have is all I got, because this is torture. I want to experience peace and just simple pleasure, like going outside, doing whatever I want without feeling uncomfortable or having someone threaten to kill me. All I have in my world is this stream, my only window to life. Baklava says, make your own happiness. And this is true. It can be hard, it can be difficult, it might even seem impossible. But true happiness really does stem from within. Now I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about elephants. When an elephant joins the circus, and the elephant is a baby, what they will do to keep the elephant from running away is they will tie a rope to it, or a chain, and they will put a stake in the ground. Now, a baby elephant isn't strong enough to pull that stake out of the ground. But it tries anyway, and it learns that it can't pull it out of the ground, and so it stops trying. And what happens when that elephant grows up? You have a fully grown elephant. You have a creature that could level a house. You have a creature that could flip a car over. But it will stay where it is, with a tiny stake in the ground that it could easily pull right out. But because it has learned that I cannot pull the stake out, it doesn't try again. This is a condition known as learned helplessness, and it's something that all mammals do. Elephants, dogs, humans, we try, we fail, and we don't try again. If you really want it, go for it. Try again. Try as many times as it takes. Because that's how you find that happy life that you're looking for. You gotta keep trying. You gotta go for it. It has to be non-negotiable. Even though the world is telling you to give up, you can't. We can't ask the world to change, but we can change our world. The only thing that you need to believe in is in yourself. You know, you don't need to believe in other people's religions, other people's creeds, other people's gods. Believe in you. Believe in love. Fight for the life that you want to live. Can you remind me of the one quote you sometimes give? I think it's when chatters ask how to attract a person. Its format is something like, if you want to blank, try instead do blank. Something like, if you want to attract someone, try something something. I think you'll get it from this. I wish I could remember it better. I want to offer it to my friend. Alright, let me think. Here's the thing about me is I say a lot of things and I remember maybe like 2% of them. But when it comes to attracting people, what I do tell people is that if you're looking to attract a person, become the type of partner that you would want to be with. Whatever it is that you are looking for in a person, you should be able to find that within yourself. Because when it comes to finding, you know, a partner or attracting a person, you're not finding this person so you can feel completed. You should already be a whole person. But being with somebody allows you to grow even beyond that. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. You want to find somebody who complements the strengths that you bring. You want to find somebody who I'm trying to think. I think I got it, though. I think I got the gist of it. Because that's normally what I talk about when I talk about trying to attract somebody, is be the type of person that you would want to be in a relationship with. And I would also say that the activity that the questioner talked about earlier, when they talked about, okay, envision your ideal partner and then view yourself from their perspective. This can give you some insight into what type of insecurities you might be dealing with. And this can also give you some ideas of maybe some beliefs that you could focus on changing within yourself. Because what we tend to do is we tend to project our insecurities onto other people. We have a hard time believing hard things about ourselves, and sometimes it's easier to believe that other people think this thing about me than it is to accept that I actually think this thing about me. I'm sure I'm probably ruminating. This morning, I threw out a big invite to a bunch of teacher friends from work in a group chat for potential plans for karaoke one night this month. This was coming from an idea we all had on the last day of school to get together in August, and I took the reins to organize it. Some context, I want to get better at following through on ideas and plans and tending to relationships. Well, only one person out of like 8 responded, and I will continue to sit on it for now, but also I don't know how to follow up later on. I don't want to appear naggy or desperate by bumping it, but I don't want to let it fall by the wayside, especially if people were just busy, forgot about it, or whatever. Understanding people are busy. I feel weird and want to respond appropriately and act cool, but definitely feel like a loser right now if no one else responds. You're not the loser for trying to plan a party. I think, just my perspective on this is one of those situations. Do you remember what it was like signing yearbooks? Since you're talking about school and teachers, I'm going to use that analogy. Do you remember what it was like signing yearbooks? Do you remember how many people you'd be like, we should hang out this summer, and then you never hung out that summer? Wishful thinking. It's a lot easier for people to be like, oh yeah, we should do that. We should all meet together sometime. We should all hang out. We should all do this. Most of the time, people do that just as a way of appearing more social than they actually are. Now, I'm not trying to say that people are disingenuous, because in that moment, they might think, you know, it actually is a good idea. But the thing is it's much easier to have an idea than it is to actually have a plan and follow through with it. And so, why would you be a loser? Why would you be a weirdo? You were the one who actually wanted to follow up on that plan that you all had. And so, from my perspective, that makes them the weirdos. It makes... I'm not trying to say they're losers, but... I was going to say it makes them the losers. Because karaoke sounds cool. Honestly, you know what I would do? You know what I would do? Don't worry about appearing naggy or desperate, because I feel like it takes a lot more than just like one reminder to be naggy or desperate. And so I would say, you know, maybe a week before. Because here's the thing about making plans. Sometimes when plans are too far in advance, we have a hard time giving a firm commitment to them because, you know, I don't know what I might be doing that day. Like, I don't know what I might be doing. I don't know what could be going on. I might have, you know, maybe they got kids, maybe they got, you know, stuff, something might come up. All right. How many people minimum would it take for this to be a worthwhile outing for karaoke? How many people do we need to go? Because I was going to say, even if it just ends up being you and one other person, you should still go. And then you can tell all of the other ones how much fun it was and how much they missed out. That's what I would do. I guess I'm just petty. But no, I'm joking. I don't think that would actually be petty. I think that would be a way of you saying, you would be showing them, like, oh, hey, I know I am serious about going out and doing stuff, and then maybe next time they'd be more likely to say yes. Because that is something that I have noticed. If you try to, like, form an outing with people and it's something that you haven't done before, you have a much harder time getting them to go that first time than if it's the second time or the third time. It's something you've been doing regularly. If it's that first time, there's still that like uncertainty that surrounds it. But if stories start going around and like, oh yeah, we went out and we did karaoke and we had a great time, like, you should go with us next time. It's like you've tested the waters for them and you're in the swimming pool and you're saying, hey, come on in, the water's fine. So sometimes you gotta jump in the pool first so that you can try to encourage other people to jump in after you. So I would say wait until it gets a little bit closer, ask them again. You're doing some good work, following through on ideas, tending to your relationships. That's good. That's good, and that's noble. So that's definitely not what a loser would do. Even if you have to, like, call some other friends or, you know, bring some other people around to, like, bump up the numbers a little bit, that's fine. But I would say don't cancel. You don't need to cancel. Just try to find some other people to fill in the gap if those other people don't want to go. Because that way, because what I feel is going to be important is when you do start talking to these friends again, you know, you're at work, you're hanging out, and you're like, yeah, we all went to karaoke. You should have been there. It was so much fun. I wish you could have been there. And they'll be like, ooh, I'm sorry. I wanted to go, but, you know, my son has soccer or something. But I feel like sometimes people have a hard time committing to something if it's too far in advance. Sometimes you have to ask people a few days ahead of time. Sometimes it helps to ask people closer to the event whether or not they'll be able to go. So there's no shame in asking them again closer to the date. Because then they will have a more realistic understanding of whether or not they can make it. But right now they're probably just like, what am I going to be doing in a couple weeks? I don't know. Something might come up. I don't want to commit to karaoke because I might have to do a thing. But no, you're not a loser if they don't respond. They're losers for not going to karaoke because that sounds badass. Feeling regret each and every time when I see those books getting dusty, and then feeling depressed and disappointed on past achievements. But still, procrastination hasn't gone. What to do? Give yourself a deadline. My ultimate technique in dealing with procrastination is you have to give yourself a deadline. Like, okay, what am I going to do today? What do I want to have done tomorrow? What do I want to try to do within a week? Because that's one of the things that one of the reasons why we develop procrastination habits in the first place is because we learn that if I just wait up until right before I have to do it, then I can get away with waiting until the last minute to do it. But then after you grow up and you get out of school and you no longer have these like deadlines implemented for you, you have to be the one that puts deadlines in place for yourself. So I would say, if you're feeling regret when you see dusty books on your shelf and you've been meaning to read one of those books, I would say take today to figure out which one of those books you want to start first. And then how long do you want to give yourself before you start reading it? Do you want to start reading it today? Do you want to start reading it tomorrow? You got to give yourself a deadline. That's what will help to start motivating you. Okay, how do you avoid talking yourself out of the deadline? There's no real consequences to failing except the innocuous future self-feeling regret. Is that not enough? Do you need more of a consequence? Isn't feeling depressed and disappointed enough? Shouldn't it be enough? Also, think about not just the consequences, but also the reward, the feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment. And so it's not just a consequence-driven act, it is also a reward-driven act. And sometimes we don't just need consequences to motivate us, we also need reward. So if you're going to take the consequences into consideration, you could also take the reward into consideration. How will you feel when you've read one of those books? Use your imagination, look into the future a little bit. Whip out your crystal ball. What sort of feelings would that give me? Doing that thing that I've been meaning to do for a long time. I feel inadequate. I feel less than. I want to feel content with who I am. I know I'm a good person, and I try to do the right things, but I just feel so inferior. How do I feel equal to everyone else? I'm 3 years behind my peers, and I feel with the years the gap is going to increase. What can I do to fix these thoughts? I hate fighting my brain, lol. Brain. Domain. It's not you versus your peers. The only person who you need to take into consideration with your progress is you. Whenever we look over and we see what they're doing, we're doing disservice to ourselves. Because we only see them for as they are in that moment, and we don't take into consideration the struggles, the challenges, the setbacks that they might have also faced. So you ask, what can I do to fix these thoughts? I would say to practice looking at yourself from an outside perspective. I want you to look at yourself as if you were your best friend. Someone that you really care about. What would you do if your best friend said to you, I feel inadequate, I feel less than, I want to feel content with who I am? What would you tell them? Thanks for the advice. I don't even know what to reward myself with. I think I have an identity crisis. You know, the reward could be anything, but I would say that the sense of accomplishment and achievement that you get by proving yourself wrong and doing something that you've been meaning to do for a long time is a great reward. There's something really powerful about finding joy and satisfaction in the act of doing rather than just in having things done. And that's how we can stay more consistently motivated. And so what I would say is to just look ahead and say, what would I be like? What would I feel like? What would my thoughts be like after I did the thing? Like, oh, I'd feel pretty good. Allow that to motivate you. I want to say something. Questioner. I just want to remind you that even people that we would look at and see as successful or accomplished, people that we might view as in some way superior to us, and I only say that because you said you felt inferior, so even those people, the ones that we compare ourselves to, they also likely feel inadequate. They also likely feel like they have room to grow. And it's because it's that feeling of, how can I grow? How can I improve? What can I do to get better? That is actually something within you that motivates you to actually do those things. I would much rather you feel inadequate than feel apathetic. The true enemy is to not care. But you do care, and so you have the power to change. And it's only through caring about you and about how you feel about yourself and your relationship with yourself that you can actually make those things happen. You mentioned fighting with your brain. If we view our brain, our thoughts, as our enemy, what can you do with an enemy? There are only a few different things that can happen. Either one, we are defeated by our enemy. Number two, we defeat our enemy. There is a third option. The best thing to do with an enemy is to turn them into an ally. And so instead of fighting against your brain, practice fighting with your brain. Ask yourself positive questions. What will it feel like when I get better? What will I feel like when I learn how to let some of these thoughts go? If you want to become that mentally healthier version of yourself, use your brain to figure out what that person looks like. What do they think like? If you want to learn how to think like that person, you got to practice thinking like that person. What sort of things are they doing? This new version of me. Start doing what they do. Become that person that you're working on being. You have within you everything you need to make the changes that you are trying to make. All you need to do is believe in your ability to change. So start identifying these thoughts that you have that no longer serve you. Whenever you find yourself facing one of these thoughts that make you feel inferior, these thoughts that make you feel inadequate, identify, do I want to keep this? Does this thought serve me? Do I want to keep this around? Or can I let this one go? Acknowledging that you want to let a thought go is how you begin the process of letting that thought go. What do you think your heart thinks of you? You have neurons in your heart. Your heart has its own little brain. So what do you think your heart thinks about you? That little dude is in there working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep your ass alive because it loves you. So listen to it. The mind has no answers, and the heart asks no questions. I apologize if this is too vague. Oh. No apologies allowed, I'm afraid. This is an apology-free zone. You got nothing to apologize for. So if you come in here and you apologize or you say sorry, you get bonked. I'm afraid that's the rules. A friend of mine recently decided to ghost me because I am, in their opinion, not good enough at a game for them to have fun while playing with me. We had been playing that game for nearly a year, and he had voiced some issue with my playstyle, and I thought we were working on it. But out of nowhere, in my opinion, he ghosts me while I was under the impression we were working on our issues in-game. I confronted him about it nearly 7 to 8 weeks after being ghosted, and his only response was essentially, "Yeah, that was messed up, sorry." He says it's up to me to decide to forgive what he did, but it's still 2 weeks after me confronting him about it, still hasn't invited me for any games or anything. Should I just give up on the relationship, as it seems he has? This is my question. I can expand on anything. Let me just say that dropping a friend over their performance in a game is a really weak reason to not be friends with somebody. I just want to say that it was basically like you were his employee and he fired you because you weren't able to do the job good enough. It's like, I'm sorry, you weren't meeting my expectations. We're going to have to let you go. It's my brother-in-law, and yep, that's what I'm saying. You know, I would say this. Does this mean that you can't mend things and be friends again at some point in the future? No, absolutely not. You guys might be able to, as you both grow, as you both, mature, you'll probably be able to, maybe you'll be able to make amends. But I feel like at least he acknowledged that it was messed up, and he did give you a semblance of an apology, but still, it's just kind of a... that's just kind of like, I don't know, like I play games with friends, right? And like if they're bad at the game, I don't mind. Like I don't like sometimes it's more fun to just have fun playing a game and not worry so much about playing perfectly. You know what I mean? Like this isn't the Olympics. I'm kind of the mindset that if we were to become friends again, it would be completely different. Right? I feel like if you guys were to be friends, it should probably be outside of the context of gaming. Because you kind of want to look at it this way. Like, he probably has a certain way that he views the people that he plays games with. He probably has a certain level of value in his game performance. And so, if when it comes to the context of gaming, he wants to play with people who are at a certain level because that's important to him. And so if you were to be friends, I would say just do something outside of playing games online together. Because playing with people who want to get sweaty isn't always fun. Like, I like to get sweaty sometimes when I play a game, don't get me wrong, but I don't want to get sweaty every single time I play a game. Like, I'm not gonna be here, like, getting mad, smashing the controller because I lost a game. That's just silly. But it's up to him, in my opinion, to repair that, not for me to just forgive it with just words. Yeah, I mean, you're valid in that. Like, you're valid in that. It's like... But I would also just take it into the consideration as like, is this a realistic is this a realistic view of like how he views me as a person, or is this just based on how he views me as a gaming partner? I don't know, I just kind of feel gaslit, like I cared for the relationship way more than he did, which sucks. There is nothing that sucks about your ability to care for a relationship. That's actually good. I would say it actually sucks more for him for not being able to care as much about a relationship. I think, you know, from my perspective, I'm trying to give everybody some grace here. I'm not trying to assume ill intent of anybody. I'm not trying to assume that anybody's like evil or anything like that. I'm trying to view it as games are really important to him. His performance in a game is really important to him. Now, how we want to view that is, you know, that's subjective, you know. I would just say this. Whenever it comes to when people mistreat us, we need to remember, you know, was this done out of ignorance or was this done out of malice? I feel like this is leading more into just a certain level of ignorance on his part. A certain level of emotional immaturity. I don't think that he necessarily did this as a way of trying to hurt you necessarily. But just that he didn't understand the importance due to whatever reasons that he's dealing with. He seems shallow. Yeah, it is kind of a shallow reason to just, especially when, you know, you got a close relationship with someone. Does it happen sometimes when sometimes we do drift apart? I'll be completely honest. Like, there are times where I will go weeks or months without talking to my friends. And it's not necessarily because I don't want to, it's just because I have my own things going on. And so I wouldn't want them to take it personally. I wouldn't want them to feel like I was trying to ignore them or anything like that. He said he didn't know how to communicate, that he wasn't having fun playing with me, and he knew saying would hurt, but IMO, I think it hurts more being ghosted. Yeah, I think that, the fact that he at least admitted that he didn't know how to phrase it, at least he's able to own that, and he's able to realize, like, you know what, I didn't handle that the best way, and so, I don't know, I feel like this is something that could be mended. I'm like, why can't we play something that we both enjoy? Like, there are other there's more than one game. It still feels like he isn't trying to repair the relationship at all since I confronted him about being ghosted, and he only wants to play that game. Well, sometimes in life we have to give people the space that they need to grow. It's like, if he didn't know how to tell you that he wasn't having fun, it's reasonable to assume that he also wouldn't know how to respond to being confronted in such a way. Like, if he didn't have the emotional maturity to tell you, like, hey, I'm just not having fun playing this game with you anymore. And if he didn't have the emotional maturity to do that, it's reasonable to assume that he also wouldn't have the emotional maturity to be like, yeah, that was right. I shouldn't have done that. How can I make it up to you? I still care about you. Like, what, we should do something else instead. And so, we want to give people the time that they need to grow. We can't really be demanding that people are like, hey, I recognize that you are emotionally immature here. I need you to develop emotional maturity right now. It's like, no, sometimes we just take some time apart. Take some time apart to grow. And then if your paths find their way back together, good. He's under 25, so I guess I'll wait till his brain is fully cooked to be friends with him again. There you go. There you go. Give him some more time. I remember that time in my life, okay? I remember that time in my life when I was around that age, and I was playing a lot of League of Legends at the time, and I had to quit playing because I was like, this game is making me get mad at my friends. Because I would play it with my friends, and then they would one of them might have a bad game, or they just weren't that good at the game, or they would, feed or throw or whatever, and it's like I was getting mad at them. But in reality, I wasn't mad at them. I was mad that I wasn't able to get the satisfaction that I was looking for out of the game, and the reason why I was playing the game was to distract myself from other things in my life that I should have been focusing on. And so I was unfairly taking it out on them within the context of, you're not good enough to play with me. And so it seems like he might be going through the same. Or you'd be bad and blame your friends, right? That's another thing that people will do is, they have a hard time acknowledging their own accountability and the way that they contributed to the loss, and they will just blame someone else instead. I've had people break up with me back in the day because they were no longer excited about the relationship. That was okay because they were too immature to form a longer lasting bond. Thank you for your wisdom in that. That's actually a very important thing to bring up is when we aren't emotionally mature, we tend to have a hard time looking at things being long lasting. Things are less permanent. On the contrary, I'm the one using the game to escape from my IRL problems. Oh no, he's doing it too. There's no way that he is getting that sweaty and that try hard in that game and he's not using it as a form of escape. I'm sorry, there's just no way. There's just no way. Now the reasons why might be his alone. They might be secret to only him and he might have never told anyone about them, but just no way. There's nobody that takes games that seriously without trying to, escape from something else that's going on. Just doesn't happen. Well, I would just say, if you feel like you got no friends, it's a good opportunity to start making more friends. And if you want to make friends, all you gotta do is be friendly. People have an interesting take on how much excitement and attraction is typical on a daily basis and how to maintain and grow those things individually, IMO. Yeah, it's interesting because people crave excitement, but sometimes excitement can be exhausting. It's like sometimes you just want to chill. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't want to just be cranked up to 11. Sometimes you just want to be at a 5. Because the reality is that most of the days that you spend on this earth are days that are just going to be okay. Not especially good, not especially bad, just average, just forgettable. So just be okay with being okay. Once again, appreciate you taking time to look at my inquiry. Hey, no problem. No problem. Might I ask, what the game was. I'm just kind of curious. I'm just a little curious. Just don't tell me it was League of Legends. That game destroys friendships. It's true. I don't think that people who play League actually enjoy playing League. I feel like joining ranked queue in League of Legends is quantifiable as self-harm, in my opinion. Penny! Penny? Who's here? Oh, it's Tony. Tony's here. Penny always barks at Tony. Penny, I'm gonna have to put you outside so you can go bark at Tony to his face. Otherwise, you're gonna have to cool it down, girl. Penny, come here. Come here. Get over here, Penny.
Get over here. Penny.
Penny, come here. Penny, come here. Penny, you disobedient little shit. Now you're gonna play nice? What type of dog is she again? She's a miniature Rottweiler. Penny? Knock it off. Penny, be cool. Penny, why are you so angry? Don't you recognize how cute you are? If you knew how cute you were, you wouldn't have to be so angry. You could just revel in your own cuteness. I would say if you're looking to make friends in a game, play something like Deep Rock Galactic. There are games that have like very friendly and inclusive communities. Those are great games to like make friends with random people on. This little furry demon. Oh. Penny. Penny. Cool it. Cool it, Peter. Dark and Darker. Oh, I haven't tried that one. Free version? It's free? You know what I've been playing lately? I've been playing Rogue Legacy 2. It's on PlayStation Plus. I've been playing that one. I haven't beaten the first boss yet. Because it's, the bosses in that game are like Dark Souls bosses. Benny, they don't want your ASMR. Started Elden Ring again. After I beat Elden Ring the first time, I was like, well, I don't know if I ever want to do that again. I don't know. But then I did start another playthrough. You know, I feel like the fan base of a game can really make or break a game. Like if the community is just not good, it just makes it really hard to enjoy playing the game. And that can be the problem sometimes when you're playing a game that's like really difficult or really like it involves a lot of time investment, and you know you gotta learn the mechanics, and you gotta it leads to a lot of frustration. And one of the things that I've learned as I've gotten older is I want to make a distinction between recreation, and frustration. So don't get me wrong, I like it when a game is challenging, but I don't feel like I want to play a game that's just gonna make me get angry. Which is why if I were to play League, I would just do like ARAMs or something. I feel like casual ARAMs are just so much more enjoyable. Because when you don't want to play with people who are treating this like this is my job, like my sense of self-worth is determined by my performance in this video game. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just not really it. ARAM gamers can get toxic, right? And that's what baffles me. It's like you're already playing the casual version of the game. Like, what? That just says to me that you're just a toxic person. If you can't help but not be toxic. My favorite thing to do whenever I encountered toxic people would be to try to get them to apologize for their toxic behavior. I've had it happen a couple times. I used all of my therapy tricks. I hate losing. So if you won every time, how long would that be fun for? It's like that episode of The Twilight Zone where a guy is in a casino and he thinks that he's in heaven and he keeps winning at the casino and he wins every time and he's like, wait, this is actually terrible. This is boring. I must be in hell. Hi. Hey, how's it going? We'll hang out for a little bit longer. See if we got any more questions coming in. Right now, I'm kind of just chilling. Being honest, I'm kind of thinking about playing Rogue Legacy. PlayStation's calling my name. I used to get baited a lot by toxic people that I became toxic back. Glad I worked on that. You got it out of your system. I feel like we've all got a little bit of toxicity and we need to get it out of our system. We just need to realize that it is not helping us, it is hurting us. Right, Penny? Penny, they don't want to hear your ASMR. Stop. She says she wants to be an ASMR streamer. Penny, stop. They don't. She wants to know if you would subscribe to her channel if she started doing ASMR streams. I don't know, Penny. I feel like the market might be oversaturated. He wants you to subscribe to this channel. Do it for her. We haven't had any subscribers today, and if we don't have any subscribers, Penny's gonna be disappointed in me. She said so. Energy is 67% off right now. That's a game I recommend. I've got quite a few hours in it. It's 4 players, or you can even play it solo if you want. You play as a gang of dwarves in a randomly generated environment, and you mine minerals and you kill bugs. Everything you could want in a game. It's only $10 right now. Hey! Rockin' stone to the bone. Which mods don't know what fun is? / mod save. I'm gonna do it. Don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. I'm warning you. Well, I think I might wrap up a little early today. I've just been feeling kind of tired today, so I think I'm just gonna go chill. I'm gonna see if I can get Casey to play Kingdom Hearts with me, though. So, yeah. See if I can get her to do some couch gameplay with me. So you might be able to come hang out with us later. Okie dokie. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being you. See you all next time. I want to raid Casey, so go tell her you want Kingdom Hearts gameplay. Go tell her you want Kingdom Hearts gameplay. Don't forget to be nice to yourself, or else. Everybody, see you next time. Bye-bye. Tell her you want Kingdom Hearts. Tell her you want Kingdom Hearts.